Hey everyone, welcome back to Path to Play. It's Valentina,
And Rory.
and we're back this week to talk about showcases. Before we talk about showcases and what they are, who goes to them, what happens, and how they're formatted, how recruiting works, we're going to kick this episode off with Memory of the Day as we usually do. Rory, I'd like to ask you, which was your most memorable soccer showcase and why?
My most memorable was definitely the last one I ever went to, which was the DA playoffs, so like our last tournament. And it's so memorable because it was during my graduation in high school. So I ended up having to miss my high school graduation to go to this showcase. And everyone at school literally could not wrap their head around the fact that I was missing graduation, but for me, it was kind of a no-brainer.
That's interesting because I wonder what I would have done if I had my graduation on the day of a showcase because I feel like that's one of those life events that most people don't miss. I can see why your classmates were so shocked that you
Yeah,
didn't go.
I never like, I don't think it was ever a question for me, like, I was gonna go, and I think 1 or 2 other people on my team had to miss theirs because of the timing as well, but I think one thing was my brother was like, "It's literally so boring, you just sit there and everyone gets called up, like, miss it, there's no point in going," so I went for it.
Where was your showcase? Like, was it outside of Seattle?
Yeah, it was in San Diego.
Oh man, yeah, that's a tough one. It's funny because I definitely missed several soccer events. I was opposite. I missed soccer events for things like my last homecoming and then definitely for sure for my prom. I remember I missed something. I don't remember what, but most of the girls on my team I think were the same. It was like we would tell our coach, "Sorry, we're just going to have to miss."
I had my priorities the other way
Yeah,
around.
I could see that. And do you mind if I ask if you have a memorable photo from that day that you were in San Diego?
Yeah, my mom brought the what do you like, the graduation hat?
The cap and the
The
gown.
cap and the gown, yeah. Not the gown, just the cap and, like,
Oh,
what's the thing
dang.
that goes around your shoulders?
I have no idea what that's
Uh,
called.
Whatever that is, and then the cap. She brought it and made me take a picture there.
The sash thing, I don't
Yeah.
know. It has a name for sure, but I know what you're talking about. Well, I'm glad she did that because the you only graduate once from high school, so okay. Thanks for sharing that memory, Rory. And I'll definitely look up what the sash graduation style thing is called. Like we said, we're going to talk today about showcases, specifically soccer showcases, what they are, who goes to them, what happens, and how they're formatted. So, this will feel a little bit similar to our part one about the college soccer identification camps. We're just going to give the overview, not so much on our experiences. I think there will be opportunity for us to get into a little bit more detail on different perspectives for college or soccer showcases, rather, in a future episode.
Mhm. Yeah, this is more just gonna be an overview of what they are, how they work, and then some light research that we did on them.
Yeah, it feels like we were playing soccer not that long ago. Like, it
Mhm.
really doesn't feel like it's been that long. So, we definitely have to do our own research before any of our episodes just to make sure that we're still addressing the changes from the time that we were playing soccer still to current landscape now. So, we're definitely going to be referencing a few external insights, and we'll make sure that we include them in our references for the episode. Okay, Rory, can you tell us a little bit about what soccer showcases are?
Yes, they are typically tournament format or a continuation of league games where all the games are played in one location to maximize exposure for players and have the ability for as many college coaches to be at that venue watching as many games as possible. It's usually at one location that has at least like 20 to 30 fields, and there's games going on 24/7, it seems like, and it's just full of families, players, and college coaches.
Yeah, and just so you guys get an idea of the current national scale, and reach of some of these showcases. One very relevant example that I found was from an ECNL article, which ECNL is the Elite Clubs National League, which includes both boys and girls youth clubs across the nation. And it's probably one of the biggest leagues
Yeah, definitely.
currently, and it's grown so much over the years. But they said that for the girls' side in this year, for the 2024-2025 season, the ECNL girls showcases averaged more than 1,000 scouts each. For the ECNL boys showcases this season, they exceeded 500 college scouts on site, and they're touting more than 1,600 college or professional commitments in the ECNL boys class of 2024. And just for this upcoming season, the 2025-2026, I guess technically they've already begun. They're going to be including over 40 events across the year for both leagues and genders. And out of those 40 different events, they will host 13 recruitable events and 11 recruitable events for the regional league, which that is just crazy.
Yeah, that this is an unreal number.
Like the thousands of scouts for those showcases is a lot. It's just a lot, and I feel like I never really had a gauge on how many scouts and coaches were at these events.
Yeah, I did it's tough, but it kinda makes sense thinking back because they're pretty much going, like, from the morning to the night, 3 days in a row, and you have a bunch of different age groups, and you just have hundreds and hundreds of people at these massive fields.
Yeah, they're all day events, and there's a lot of people there, and it just feels almost like this big festival in a
Yeah,
way.
it kinda is.
Like, there's food around, it's
Yeah,
meant for
food
you
trucks,
yeah,
yeah,
it's meant f
merch.
oh, yeah, it's meant for you to be there all day, and it's like a franchise feel, like you're getting marketed to in a way, and I think that just builds up these showcases to where recruiters and athletes alike will want to come back, or more so recruiters and clubs will want to come back, spend their money, and be there. But a few other examples of these showcases can also include professional level scouting. So things like the MLS Next, which is a league within the Major League Soccer, Girls Academy, winter showcases where you have US youth national team scout attendance, things like the Surf College Cup, which I think we've mentioned a couple times before. That's a huge showcase. I think it's still very large, and it has a massive West Coast showcase footprint, I think, for years now.
Yeah, the Surf Cup has always been a big one, and they have 2. They have one in the summer and then one also kind of around Thanksgiving in the winter time, just to get even more opportunity to host showcases.
Yeah, I was just so shocked by the scout density, you guys, like the thousands the s the stat of the 1,000 scouts for these showcases was pretty crazy to me. But it speaks a lot to the fact that these are unique events that are different from standard tournaments or league games in the sense that they are putting players right in front of college coaches.
Yeah, and they definitely have a very different feel from your normal, like, league or local tournament game. I remember being at these, it feels immense because there's so many teams there and there's so many college coaches, and you can just tell, like, the pressure's up.
Yeah, for sure. It feels a little bit more serious, and you know you're being watched, and
Yeah.
we'll get a little bit deeper into the recruiting piece in just a little bit, but moving on to who goes to these events, who would you say is the general landscape when you show up to these? I feel like we alluded to it earlier, but who would you say is in these events?
Yeah, a lot of the times it's gonna be clubs that are in the ECNL. Like, for example, those ECNL showcases, those are built into the league and tournament play, and so it'll be all the clubs in the ECNL for that specific division. And then there's also things like Surf Cup, which is on its own, and they host clubs that are probably about ECNL, usually national level. So we're talking like the top division in each state. Teams from those leagues are going to these, and then those will kind of be a little more regional. Like Surf Cup is huge for West Coast, but I don't remember ever seeing anyone kind of like past Texas going to that.
Yeah, definitely much more regional, and there might be some outliers, but I think usually they're pretty regional or the reaches. I feel like the typical age ranges for these events are now inclusive of even U13 all the way up until U19 level teams.
Yeah, there's definitely a big age range. For the younger ones, sometimes they'll have those on different weekends. Like I know
Mhm.
the Surf Cup I think is broken up into 2 weeks for younger and older. For the younger ones, you probably won't see as many college coaches, but it still kind of has that big atmosphere and you still have like
Yeah,
the festival kind of feel. So those are a lot of fun for younger kids, but the older ones are much more tailored towards getting as many college coaches as possible.
definitely, and I'm sure if those younger teams already have a really good well-known pipeline to very good schools, I'm sure there's some pretty big scouts wanting to come get a look at the early talent.
Oh, yeah, and also for those younger teams, before you're getting recruited by colleges, you could be getting recruited by MLS academies, like the MLS Next academies that you talked about earlier, and also youth national team looks.
For sure. As far as people who are at these, obviously, besides the athletes, you could expect to see college coaches, whether it's the head coach, assistant coach, associate head coach, specifically from the NCAA, which is the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Pretty much all the universities are going to be a part of the NCAA, and the NAIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. So different roles. It definitely will vary by showcase,
Mhm.
and I think that just depends on the size of the showcase, the location of it,
Location, yeah.
what clubs and teams are expected to go.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time you'll get the big D1s going to a lot of those large scale showcases kind of regardless, but then you'll probably get more local presence from smaller D1s and D2s and D3s.
All right, and what can you expect to happen in the showcase, both as an athlete and as a parent?
Yeah, as an athlete, it's usually 3 games, I would say, is kind of the standard, and they're just normal kind of games. There's nothing different about, like, the rule set or anything like that, but if it is a tournament setup like the Surf Cup, then you will move on to knockout stages, so you'd probably then move on to quarters, semis, and finals, so then you'd probably be looking at a 5 to 6 game sort of pretty intense weekend plus, like, a Monday maybe
For
and
sure.
a Friday. For parents, when kids are younger, you're looking at 2 games in a day. They'll typically do that because the games are shorter.
Mhm.
But if you have a kid who's older, probably above like 16, then you're looking at probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday for sure. Games, food trucks, your
Mhm.
kid wanting to buy gear at the merch shops.
I definitely had a Surf Cup shirt.
Yeah. And then in terms of being a parent there and recruiting, I think the college coaches will kind of try and stay on their own. Especially, they don't want to break any rules, and they also don't want to get into long conversations with parents. I would say so. They kind of try
Mhm.
and stay alone. But if your kid is talking to the coach, or you want to make an introduction, like a nice hello, thanks for coming, is always going to be accepted.
Yeah, we definitely had to have a couple of those interactions. They weren't always my favorite because they definitely felt a little bit forced, and you're so young. As we've talked about before, you feel a little bit awkward and nervous, but it's definitely a normal space where you can do that. Like, I think I we were probably overthinking it more than we had to.
Yeah, definitely, but I would also say, like, the coaches are gonna be running around because there's so
Yes,
many games,
yes,
so
you only have
yeah, you
you
want it to
a
be
minute.
yeah, you want it to be smooth and sweet.
Be quick and then leave.
Yeah.
Also, earlier you mentioned the elimination games, quarterfinals, semifinals, things like that. I feel like those typically, at least from my experience, when you do make those later games for the showcases that do have elimination matches, typically those are high in attendance for college coaches that can afford to stay around later in the tournament and that want to catch those games where you'll most likely have some very top talent at those matches.
Yeah, 100%. And also at that point, a bunch of the other teams have gone already, so there's
Yeah.
less games, so more coaches are able to go to that certain game.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's just a step up, so the chances of the players being at a higher level is even higher.
Agree. Like, I don't really remember being in that position very often because those showcases tend to be harder and more competitive. But when you did look around the field, because like we said, these are huge, these are massive venues with so many fields. If you walk through any of the fields that are going on and you see the elimination games happening, there are a lot of those foldable
Yeah,
chairs
there
outlined
are.
around the field and just lots of clipboards and
Mhm.
observing coaches, so it's funny to see that. Let's get into the recruiting piece. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? I think just to generally inform athletes and parents alike.
Yeah, so usually, at least from my experience, I think you've had similar, you would get a list of the coaches attending the showcase, and this would
Yeah,
be provided by whoever is hosting the showcase. This way you can look through all the schools and then send a email to the probably the assistant coach and CC the head coach saying like, "Hey, I'll be at this tournament, this showcase. I'll be playing this day, this day, this day at this field. It would be great if you could come watch. I really appreciate it." And then other stuff like your GPA and grad year.
right.
So that's a really good way to start off. And then also, clubs will usually compile a list of all their players and their information and either send that out to the coaches attending or hand it out to ones who are watching the game.
Yeah, my mom had to do that once for sure.
I think technologically we're probably past the paper,
Yeah.
like, booklet of all the players, so I would assume it's all digital getting sent via email,
Yeah.
but that's typically how it was set up. But I will say, now that there are 1,000 coaches going to an ECNL showcase, I'm not totally sure how you would get a list of all those schools.
It's definitely online. They have to have some directory, I would assume. I mean, the ECNL, the league I was talking about earlier, is definitely one of the leading leagues in youth development and
Mhm.
exposure in the US. So there's definitely a space probably when showcases are hosted where there's probably honestly some sort of database where there's all the college coaches that might be in attendance for specific events.
Yeah, I think that you will know at least almost all of the schools that will be there. So reaching out to ones before the tournament starts is always a good way to go.
Yeah, and a lot of the recent trends in soccer showcases place some importance on the evolution of the tech side of how athletes connect with some of these recruiters or college coaches. I think it's just a lot more accessible now between videos you can share and being able to click perhaps on their email directly on the platform
Mhm.
rather than you having to scavenge on your own. Like, I think youth sports, specifically youth soccer, has evolved in a way where athletes have a lot more opportunity to move into the next level, even from things like switching the cutoff date where coaches and athletes can interact, small
Mhm.
things like that, that I think athletes are now moving towards more digital ways of marketing themselves for recruiting purposes.
And I think one other thing I would add on to this recruiting piece is if you are past the date at the end of your sophomore year where you can talk to coaches and you have been in communication with a coach and they said that they're going to go to one of your games and you see them there and the time's right, I would suggest going and saying thanks for coming and we'll keep in touch later or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that after the game.
Yeah, definitely, which is, I think, hitting on an earlier point where
Yeah.
we said it's definitely worth just going up and quick thanks is sufficient.
Yeah, definitely.
quick one, but intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
So, obviously, showcases are the place to be. They're clearly a great opportunity to get some looks in addition to things like identification camps. I mean, I think these are such great opportunities. We're not going to talk about this today, but you can literally guest play for teams. Usually, there's teams that need more players, whether it's due to injuries or absent players, and there's a portal where, or either through connections of your club coaches, but I'm very certain there's a portal because I did this once, where you can go guest play with another club team completely unaffiliated with your own club, just so that you can have the opportunity to get seen by a college coach in these showcases while also providing support to a club team that might need extra numbers, which I think is great. Like, whether or not these events are money pits or ways to get a
Mhm.
lot more visibility for leagues and clubs, I just think ultimately it is a really good way to get seen by a college coach if that's the path that you're trying to pursue.
Yeah, I think in general, it's probably the best way and the highest probability of getting seen
Mhm.
just due to the sheer amount of eyeballs on you at these
For sure.
events.
Yeah, it's definitely the best way to get honestly just identified from the start, right? We took a look at a separate study that specifically focused on college coaches and their methods for talent identification. And we found that pretty much all college coaches' preference for identifying talent within the soccer space were live games. I'm talking for women 93% and for men 88%, which is just pretty much 100%.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a unique time. Like I would have guessed that watching live games was kind of the preferred method, but I definitely wouldn't have guessed that it was 92% on average said that. But I think that just speaks to how important college coaches value being able to see you in person, you see your skills, see how you interact with your teammates, see your work rate, and kind of all your both technical and then also mental skills. So I think, yeah, it is kind of the most opportune time to get your skill set and show it off.
Yeah, and within this same study, one of the things that was researched was what they rated as their most important attributes in a player that they observed during these events. And they included the technical proficiency, their coachability, decision making, and work rate as critically important. I think the showcases offer a very real picture of what a player might be like on a regular basis. And again, you're not always going to have a perfect showcase performance. I've lived through it. I think one of my memory of the days was specifically on how I had a horrible showcase performance. But if you are identified either in the next one or in the one prior, a great way to follow up is an identification camp or another showcase where you can reach out to other coaches. Like, there's just ample opportunity in organized events like these ones.
Yeah, I think going off what you said about you may not be playing your best. One college coach that I was talking to, we lost a game that he was at, and I don't think I played particularly well, but he said one of the things he really appreciated that even though we were losing and probably weren't going to come back in the last 5 to 10 minutes, I was still running hard. I was still pressing and still trying to get all my teammates into it.
Yeah. And again, everyone's path, everyone's opportunities are different, but we just wanted to give an overview of one that very much is a popular route for trying to get identified to play in the next level should you want to follow that path. Whether you're an athlete, if you're a parent, evidently these come with costs. These are very time consuming. So that's a whole different conversation. But objectively, I think these are just spaces where coaches can identify top talent. Last thing I did want to point out though was I was also surprised, Rory, by the in-person experience.
Mhm.
I guess I kinda maybe it was just because I spent a lot of time with my mom making my huddle highlight videos, but I was hoping those would have a little bit more importance than they actually do.
Those did rank 2nd,
They did,
we should
yes.
call out. So they are important, but
Yeah,
nothing apparently compares to the in-person
yeah,
experience.
which I guess that also makes a lot of sense, but
Mhm.
if you do have the opportunity and the resources where you can get film on your games. It's helpful not only just so you can create your highlight videos, but also for yourself so you can, take notes and learn. And I'm
Yeah,
sure,
that too.
yeah, but it's harder obviously for when you're in youth sports
Mhm.
still. All right. So I think that was a very insightful, productive conversation, Rory. Hopefully, you guys have a better understanding of what a soccer showcase is and who's involved and what to expect, again, whether you're a parent or an athlete.
And if there are any follow-up showcase questions, send them our way. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you guys. See you next week.